Hello and welcome to Gotham Outsiders presents The Better Cut, our movie review podcast. Insisting on Amazonian singing every time I enter the room, I'm your host, Bat Obsessive Chris. And climbing ice-covered mountains to find his water himbo, my co-host TJ!
Hello, everyone. I am your Chris proclaimed Batman acolyte, and at least I have a sexy beard.
At least you have a sexy beard and serious goggles. But we have quite a villain to face today, so we need to assemble a team. Thanks to some blurry video footage, we located the third member of our team, our first third-time returning guest, prize-winning poet and University of Baltimore professor and bat-cademic, Stephen Leyva!
What's up, y'all? I'm just over here losing my religion like Batman in the film.
So, Stephen, TJ, I think that we need some more help. This is honestly such a big threat. So I have collected a MacGuffin box for us. Stephen, if you run real fast, TJ, if you kind of brood in the corner, I'm going to power pose. And I think together we can probably summon someone pretty impressive. What do you think?
I don't know. How impressive.
I'll be your mother box.
That was, are you hitting on me? I don't even, well, working together, I think we can do it. We might just be able to summon host of Pop Culture Happy Hour and our show's favorite book, The Caped Crusade, Glen Weldon!
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I just came in from a swim in my jeans, because I do that. Swim in jeans. Chafing is not a thing. I'm a superhero, so it's okay.
Glenn, we can't believe you're here.
I'm delighted to be here. I love this damn show. Even when you're not saying stupidly, egregiously nice things about the book, I still listen. I love the show.
Oh, thank you so much. That's amazing.
Chris and Steven are freaking out that you're here, but I am completely calm.
No, I can tell.
A forced calm, if you will.
I'm going to wrap the lasso of truth around you for that one.
Okay, I'm a little excited. And by a little, I mean, I'm very excited you're here. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, my pleasure. And you mentioned the magic lasso. Like, we lost the lasso joke, the Aquaman lasso joke in this cut. Like, I like that joke. It was one of the things I liked.
We lost almost every joke in this cut.
I actually, you know what? It surprised me how much of like the Ezra Miller stuff was not Whedon. I figured all of that stuff, and then it turned out to be Snyder. Yeah, it's surprising me. It surprised me how much of the humor was Snyder's. It did not surprise me how much of the slow mo and the downward.
I mean, like, you know, that slow mo felt like. You know, the thing I kept coming back to, it's so odd. It was something about the singing, or the kind of like ancient singing every time the Amazons were on, you know, and the slow-mo. I was like, am I watching Star's Spartacus? You know, every time I'm like, I'm in the Spartacus universe, you know, like it feels like Nick Snyder has a kind of passion for Thracians, you know.
Can we just start with the soundtrack, aka the worst part of this movie?
Yeah, that Amazon singing too often.
Yes, the one note, but also like the Norwegian singing or the Icelandic people.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, why that Lord of the Rings scene in this movie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which was kind of undercut by sweater huffing at the end. Something's just really cut yourself off at the knees there.
Do you think his sweat is good smelling? Like, what are we got going on here?
Probably like a pickle brine, I would imagine.
Oh God.
But we have such whiplash too. Like, this is the worst mixtape that was ever made for a fan. Like, because when Aquaman is on, we have like a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, you know, in the music. Like, and that felt like, am I even in the same movie?
Until he walks toward the waves and this like white guy with a guitar music starts playing, saying, I'm a king, I'm a king, I'm a king. And I was like, subtlety.
And in the scene with Iris West crashing, because we get this incredible 3D Sesame Seed coming at us, which is like, it gets its own origin story in this movie. The scene where Ezra Miller gently, he kind of speed fondles her face for a second. He total creeper, and then he puts her down. We get we get that entire song, right? We don't just get like a clip of it. It's like 3 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is the bridge. This is Jesus. We're going all the way.
There is not a song we don't hear every verse of, including they add verses to some of these songs. I swear they were so long.
Did that scene make you want a hot dog real bad?
Okay.
That was so strange. Of all in the universe of phallic symbols.
Right. Okay. So TJ and I were watching this virtually together, and we were just talking about how, Ezra Miller is a non-binary person, brings a lot of queerness to every role they play. And we were like, wow, this Flash is really gay. And then the hot dogs fly at his face. And we were like,
I was like, please don't eat it. Please don't touch her with it, please.
I can't.
But let me ask this. Are you guys glad this movie exists, even if you enjoyed it or did not enjoy it?
So I was saying a little bit earlier and kind of thinking about it. I at about hour 2, I thought, as much as I like Glen Weldon and love the Gotham Outsiders, it ain't worth it. I'm gonna call them. And said, find another way, time travel, whatever you got to do. But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the last hour, and I don't know if it suddenly because it suddenly becomes a video game, and I'm just watching the best cutscenes ever, and they're just, I don't know. I get to see Batman actually being Batman, in a way that feels pleasurable. So I'm really of a mixed bag, I came out of that last hour saying, this is really kind of fun in a way that the first half of the movie is just resisting being fun. And then in a moment of complete on the noseness, we get a version of Hallelujah in the music credits.
I was waiting for it and I knew it was coming. And
8 minutes long.
Yeah.
Apparently that was his daughter or Zack Snyder's daughter's favorite song.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. It was sweet. If you knew what it was sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess.
The Snyder Bros loved it. Okay.
I'm sure they did.
That is the organizing principle for this film, right? That's the only reason this thing exists. And I am happy for them. They're not gonna, it's not gonna be enough for them because
it already isn't.
There is what they want is total acclamation. They want this thing to be lionized, and that's never going to happen because that's not how the universe works. But there is, as I was watching it, I thought, okay, this is fascinating because I grew up with these characters. I care about these characters deeply. The Desaad that appears is almost exactly the Desaad, my superpowers action figure Desaad.
Yes.
He looks almost exactly like it. Now, Steppenwolf doesn't look anything like it. Because you couldn't do this comic book Steppenwolf because he's in brown with a big axe and a pointy beard. That wouldn't work. I get that. But it is so odd to see these characters on screen and feel no connection to them. Absolutely none, because they're not, but of course, one could write a book or two about how, these characters are fluid. They are interpreted by different people. They're picked up by different people, and the zeitgeist or the world kind of changes them. And it was just fascinating to me to feel so disconnected from something that I love so much. And that disconnection arose from the fact that I fully believe that Snyder does not understand these characters, doesn't understand heroism, doesn't respect it, doesn't believe in it, has this kind of quasi-objectivist Randian vibe.
Yes.
Where there is no such thing as altruism. It's just yourself that's more important than everybody else, and everybody else around you is a parasite. And these people want something from you and they drag you down. Now, you mentioned, Stephen, at the very end, how the movie kind of takes a weird uptick. It gets better based on the fact that we now have actual character arcs that can come to a head. We didn't have that before. And before we get to all those epilogues, which, oh boy, that Lord of the Rings, that Fellowship, that was stupid, a waste of time. But we hear Jor-El and we're talking about Superman, not Batman here, but we hear Jor-El and Pa Kent have a kind of vibe off, where the thing I hated about Man of Steel was Pa Kent saying, hide yourself, don't be a hero, let people die, let me die. And then that whole section where Clark tells a story where he helped save the family farm from flooding, but and his mom baked him a cake that said hero. And then it turned out that they had the Lang farm down the river, because he had fixed it, they flooded. And there's a line in the movie where, as I was eating my hero cake, their horses were dying, which is just it's terrible writing. And it's also it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what these characters are there for, right? Like,
yes.
And so when Pa Kent comes around at the end and says it's time for you to lift up the world and inspire hope, I mean, it's lip service, but it wasn't there before. And you almost feel like if this was actually a trilogy he had in mind, like that was his plan all along, was to have him, think that he shouldn't save the world, should hide, and then finally have an arc where he realizes that that's what happened. But oof, boy. There's something that I've been thinking about a lot regarding that,
and I keep coming back to: do I believe that Snyder has a kind of unacknowledged contempt for superheroes? And it's so different. Like I can read a deconstruction in The Dark Knight Returns from Miller, or I can read it in Watchmen, right? And what I don't get from either Moore or Miller is a sense that they kind of hate comics, or they kind of hate. They have a deep love. They don't have contempt. They have a kind of questioning about hero worship. But it's so odd, when I see the way the movie moves and thinks about its characters. I mean, it just flattens. Like it just flattens and flattens and flattens. That's why, I was like, suddenly Batman's not a skeptic, but he's a true believer. He's a kind of faith-filled, like evangelical. This is bizarre.
Yes.
And it's not that, and it's like, I get it. I get, of all the people that that Batman might believe in, it might be Superman. But the 180 of it seems to be like a kind of ventriloquism, like like Batman is now Snyder taking on look at what all your faith gets you, is just a mess, and I'm like, man, can you please just have somebody, honestly, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I think Game of Thrones has the same problem, right? That goodness doesn't exist except for as a delusion, I think is the reason why you can't get a good ending. You don't know how to end your pieces. You can't end the film successfully, or any series successfully, because you can't do a J.R.R. Tolkien eucatastrophe. You're not deeply cynical enough to have a true horror.
Right.
So you're just left with a nothing burger,
Yes. So shout out to one of our listeners, Bronwyn, who pointed this out to me, and I've been thinking about it since then. Snyder has this relationship with color palette. I mean, we've all talked about like the no saturation, but she pointed out that everything evil is colorful in this movie. So Superman, when he is at the end, when we'll get to those million, Lord of the Rings endings, he is in his colorful suit. When he's good, he's wearing black and white. Like there's a distrust of all things comic book, right? Like the pretty colors, that's a lie. That's not truth. Like everybody's got to be, there's no colors at all. Let's suck it all out. I think the most jarring moment is watching the Aquaman scene where he's underwater. And I've seen the Aquaman movie. Everything is colors. Where did those colors go? What happened? They're just gone. It's blue and gray.
The Watchmen movie that Snyder did was also sunk in these same kind of grays and browns. But it was also, it was not so much a movie as it was a storyboard. He basically took the Moore's book and just did it on screen. But he swapped the tone. He didn't understand that these people are violently messed up. These are deconstructions of superheroes. This is like when superhero rubs up against fascism, what happens? And they were made out to be badasses in a way that just fundamentally doesn't get what that book's about. And and here there's still some of that same fundamental not getting it. It's kind of saved at the end there. I mean, I was surprised to see, you want to go into a movie like this with Superman in it and the Justice League in it. You want at one point to cheer. And I will say this though, I mean, you got to give it to this guy. This guy's a good iconographer in terms of visuals. Like he will deliver, right? He will deliver stances, he will deliver moments, instances, but you could then accuse him of being just a storyboard artist as opposed to a director, because there's not a lot of connective tissue that really works emotionally. There's no through line.
Yes. Yeah. In a movie that is 4 hours and 2 minutes long, I was expecting more than maybe 20 additional character conversations. 20 minutes. Sorry, not 20 scenes, 20 minutes of additional. The only one we get really is the graveyard scene. And when it happened, it was like a breath of air. I was like, oh, conversations? Finally, it ends right away. And we're back to fighting. That was sad.
Nobody speaks. There's no dialogue for 7 minutes.
Why do any of these characters care about each other? That was the thing I kept going. Like, I mean, they're superheroes, so they care about each other. But when they're like, oh no, Flash is hurt, I was like, why do you care? You haven't talked to him.
Can we talk about the missed opportunity around the Flash? Like, that Flash is sort of regulated to kind of like souped up support, magician role. Like, I mean, you've got I mean, and some of it is I do like the kind of like the contrast of a lot of what he does seems gentle, like the touching. I think iconography wise, really nice touch. But you've got Justice League Unlimited sitting right there. You've got an instance where the Flash can run around the world and smack Steppenwolf in a way that no other superheroes can do. And yet, right, like it's almost there's a strange to me way in which it feels like Snyder doesn't know what to do.
Yes,
with the Flash, afraid that the Flash can become like Superman, the ultimate solve any problem. And I'm like, you've got source material that can show you how you could take the way a villain might look at the Flash and say you're useless, and the way and Glenn, that's what you're talking about, that true sort of altruism of saying, those of you who feel useless might be the most powerful. There's just a missed opportunity that's like substituted for a kind of like, Aquaman stabs Steppenwolf and then launches it for Superman, and then Wonder Woman cuts off his head. Like, I don't know.
We can talk about that forever. That whole ending. I agree with you. I feel like despite it being a missed opportunity, I think Flash has the most pathos in this version of the movie, but it's like just barely there. You can see it. It's there. And every time it happens, I got very excited, and then it would immediately end again. But I think there's something fun about how joyful he is. Like, he's excited. He wants to join the Justice League. Superman is his hero. Like, when we get those lines, I'm like, yeah, more of that. There was a level that this could have been like Shazam, one of my favorites, right? It could have been. We could have had that kind of like, he gets to fanboy out, but it's like hidden, just barely there.
I was surprised at how little personality Aquaman exhibited in this.
Yes.
I had conflated the Justice League and the Aquaman film in my head, but I didn't realize that there was such a marked personality. He's here and he's dour, and you've already got a character who's that shtick is. You've already got a brooder, so we don't need your outbrooding Aquaman. You're outbrooding Batman. That's not your slot. Stay in your lane. And there is some, Aqua Himbo stuff in there, but like it really came out. He was given a lot more to do and had a lot more fun in the Aquaman film.
Yeah.
I miss that, and I wonder what you all think about it too. I miss the kinds of presentations of Aquaman in which he's got a kind of arrogance, right?
Yes.
And I get it, because if you're talking about him pre ascending to the Atlantean throne, but it would have been nice to see that kind of ego that feels like, where there's opportunities for Schadenfreude, or there's opportunities of like, working with the Flash or Cyborg in ways that open him up a little bit more and give him some personality, give him an arc from ego to, needing people. And it would parallel, the Flashes saying, I need friends, like
they could have been friends.
And we've actually got, if you think about it, we've got Cyborg, who's also, his slot is brooding. So it's 3 different kinds of dour.
And Superman in this one. So
and yeah, he's moping. Big moping.
Hardcore moping energy in this movie.
It's very emo. It's very it's like The Crow with Cape.
Yeah, I think Aquaman was the one I cared about least in this one. Like, we had a lot of scenes of him talking with people underwater in this, and just every time I was like zoning out.
Yeah. I think there was also just a lot of, TJ can attest, I kept going, did we already know that from this movie? Like when Wonder Woman and Aquaman are having that heart to heart and they make up, like, did we know they had conflict? Because we didn't. I'm certain they didn't know that. And they were like, wow, we have made up for years of conflict that nobody knew we had.
Yeah, we see that big climactic battle with, it's fun to see a Green Lantern. I'll give me a Tomorrow, and I'm like, it's fun to see a Green Lantern. But we see that big battle with the Atlanteans and the Amazons and the incredibly hot Zeus.
Yes.
And the whole thing looks like the side of a van, right? It looks like a Rosetta painting.
Yes.
Big deal. But I was in for it. But we kind of keep getting told that happened 6 or 7 times. We saw it. We were here.
It's also almost a 1-for-1 for the way that the Lord of the Rings opens with that
Thank
same
you.
idea.
Yep.
This was Lord of the Rings, but somehow so much worse paced.
Murkier, yes.
Yes. I'm somebody who likes the extended editions of Lord of the Rings. I can watch a 4-hour movie, but this one, as you were saying, Stephen, 2 hours in, I was like, do we really? Like, we got this much?
Oh, man. And like when Fellowship of the Ring ended, because I love those books so much and I love these films so much, I was in it for every one of those endings, even the one where each character gets to stand in the doorway and kind of nod and walk in the room. Like, it's like, this is their applause moment. This is the curtain call, right? We need to be able to cheer them. Exactly.
We needed that.
But I love that. But here it's just every mid-credit scene that he didn't get to do. And it's just a slog.
Did you guys think Wonder Woman was portrayed better in this cut
than in Whedon's?
Yes.
I mean, that is the low bar, but sure. We didn't get butt shots. We didn't get motorboating her boobs from Flash, improvements.
Yeah. We did get her in a wildly impractical outfit to dust statues with. That was not. You can't be wearing. I mean, okay, you look great. Nobody's saying you don't look great.
Her Emma Frost outfit.
Her Emma Frost outfit. You're right.
Emma Frost outfit. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I definitely, because I came into this not having watched the. Because I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to watch this Snyder one.
Okay.
But and I find, there was something, and this goes to like some of that slow-mo. There's something just very cool about her blocking all the bullets, and saving that group of children.
Yes.
But the way that it's shot, right? The way that we get to experience that makes her operate like the Flash.
Yes.
Or in a way that there's some dissonance there that's both cool, and yet like there was another way to do this that I think wasn't chosen, where it didn't require. There's some middle ground between super fast movements, and super slow movements. There's some other way to do that I don't know. It wasn't seen.
I thought the exact same thing. It did look like Flash, including she does the Flash pose at the end when she stops the final bullet. And I was like, wait a second. And she also vaporizes that guy, which
gosh, Chris.
He does a lot of murdering in this movie.
But that's a great moment of like everything that the film thinks is funny ends up being dour, and everything that is like serious, like dark, ends up being kind of funny. So you see that hat floating down. I was like, is that supposed to be a joke?
I know. I was like, is he dead, or are we gonna pan back and he just doesn't have a hat on? Like, what's happening?
Right. She kills people, but at least she's good with children. Like,
I know. I love that minute. She's like vaporizes this man, and then it pans over, and the kid's like, "Can I be like you, a murderer?"
I did like that line. I think that was probably the one moment in the film where I actually was like, wow, I feel something.
Yeah, that was cute. It was cute. It just was weirdly timed after what we'd just seen her do.
Yeah.
And it recalls the Whedon moment. He got a lot of shit for this, but like the opening scene of his Justice League is of kids filming Superman as you would on their phones and asking him a cute question if he'd ever fought a hippopotamus. I don't know what it was, but like, and he smiles.
Yeah.
He smiles, something that this Superman does not do, is constitutionally incapable of doing. But I mean, we can now say that the Joss Whedon film is even worse than we thought it was.
Yes.
Because it was so clearly a work of studio hackery and just knitting things together and adding some really weird sexist jokes.
Oh yeah.
And this is a director's vision for what it's a wonky one. It's a really dark, dour, self-important one.
Yes.
But self-impressed and self-important and portentous one. But it is coherent to the extent that Zack Snyder can be coherent.
Yes.
And boy, it going back and looking at the Whedon one, it's just a hack job. It's just somebody coming at the last minute and listening to studio notes about lightening it up.
Yes.
And boy.
And people on Twitter are dragging Whedon, rightfully so.
I mean, there are some real good reasons to drag Whedon.
Oh, definitely. And I said I am all for it, but also this is what the studio asked for and approved. So like we need to hold all of them accountable for how bad it was.
We really do. Okay. I hate to say anything good about a Whedon product at this point in my life. It physically pains me, but I really do miss the Flash Batman moments that we don't get. Those were such good character moments. And when I discovered they were Whedon moments, I was very sad.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, Whedon delivered a 2-hour movie because he was asked to deliver a 2-hour movie. In a real world, a 4-hour cut of a movie isn't a thing.
Yeah.
If we weren't all stuck at home and could take pee breaks, like he didn't conform to the parameters of the gig, which is to make a movie that people can sit through, right?
Right.
4 hours is just not, you haven't made a movie, you've made a television show. I don't know what you've made, but and part of the art is to work within the boundaries that you're set. And even if those boundaries are commercial driven, like no theater chain will ever do a 4-hour movie because that's not enough butts and seats for them. That's your parameter. Now here he got a get out of jail free card because everybody is sitting at home. But this thing, even if you interrupt it with chapter cards, and when that chapter card came up and it said something darker, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It can't get darker, dude.
I mean, if you're gonna make a 4-hour film, your name better be Bergman. Your name better be like somebody who is an auteur, art house, and maybe vaguely European, something like.
Snyder thinks he's an auteur. He 100% thinks he's an auteur.
Plenty of my folks in my mentions have used the word auteur for Zack Snyder as well. So yeah, that's the thing.
Oh no.
I hard pass on that, but it's also. I mean, I was wondering about whether or not there was more or less Batman in the different films, because I come to the end of the film and I was like, I wanted, I actually, over some some protestation, think that Affleck's a pretty good Batman.
Yes.
I enjoyed his presentation more than I was resistant. I wanted to hate it, and I was like, I actually don't. I would have liked more, actually.
I agree. The only real thing I think that I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. The only scene that I'm missing from the other one is there's a moment where he gives a pep talk to the Flash about how to be a hero. And he has this moment where because Flash is like, I've never saved anyone. I haven't used my powers like this. And Batman says, save one person. That is enough for right now.
There's a rooftop scene at the very beginning of the Whedon cut where it's a cool Batman fight. Take it or leave it. But besides that, a lot of the scenes in the Snyder cut are the same scenes from the Whedon cut, just slightly different, like shot slightly different, tweaked dialogue. Less
of the shots are shot past Wonder Woman's butt, as we discovered thanks to Twitter.
Right. So I felt like there was the same amount of Batman.
Yeah, I think there is.
Like, my opinion on him was not affected by this movie at all.
Yeah, I think TJ and I have talked about it before. We actually like Batfleck we just don't think he's ever been a good movie, so it's hard to tell. If he had a movie where we could see him, probably not made by Snyder, I think I would like it.
Yeah.
The Martha scene, he sold it. You can't. No human actor can sell something that stupid. but he did. He
sure did. He gave it his all.
He E for effort, M for Martha. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think about what is Batman's role in the Justice League? Like, what does he do for us as readers and as viewers, right? And I often come back to the idea that he shows us, and actually this is, I think, a very Tolkien sort of thing too. He shows us what someone might do in the face of almost certainly going to lose, right?
Yes.
Like he in some ways is the most optimistic character because he's got the highest possibility of legitimately being murked, by a parademon, and so one of the things that I enjoyed about both that last half, in parts where Batman is showing up, is it didn't turn him into Bruce Lee. It didn't turn him into, or like Iron Fist or some kind of like martial artist that is so adept that they can't ever be touched. It was more. It felt more like a soldier, right? Like a human soldier just trying to survive. It's like let Superman take out like 100 people. I'm gonna take out this one parademon. This one parademon. Get in the Nightcrawler and do what I can to help the whole. Right. So like, isn't it odd that of all the characters who sort of believes in community in this film, the one who believes in community the most is Batman.
Yes.
The loner, the person in other presentations I mostly work alone.
Yeah, which is always a lie, but yes.
Right. Yes.
As Alfred sits back in the cave and goes, "You work alone." What?
Yeah. Right.
In the comics, for many years, they were just best buds. And back, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when comic book characters didn't have personalities, that was fine. They could be best buds. But as soon as they kind of did what they did to Batman, made him an obsessed loner in the 70s, and really started growing out this idea of him as the master tactician, then you can see a period there, especially in the 70s and 80s, when they were writing Superman as like, well, I don't know, I just punch things, and because they needed that dynamic to work here. That kind of went through different iterations with the John Byrne Man of Steel and all this kind of stuff. But like I think Grant Morrison's Justice League run, where it's Batman as the tactician who hangs back and has plans and contingency plans. That's how you slot. This is what Justice League Unlimited did too. You kind of slot that into. That's his groove where I think works best here, and there's some of that in this movie.
Yeah, I think so too.
What about Cyborg? Because he had a lot of new material in this.
Yeah,
and I have some thoughts. Go
nuts.
Well, one of them is just shallow about it. I found the way that they design Cyborg moving feels very feline to me. It feels very like he kind of sways a lot. He like
kind of like a panther or some kind of black panther.
Yeah, right. And that was always a little strange to me because I'm so used to Cyborg being much more of a tank, right? Like that he in his robotic body still operates like a football player, right? The football player he was. He still operates like I could. I'm not going to spin and dodge. I'm going to plow through you, and
right.
So like in a shallow way, there's something weird because part of that CGI movement too also made it so his chin was in the air all the time.
Yes.
It's like weirdly, like he's weirdly always like looking with his chin up and his eyes down at somebody, so I don't know. Like that's my shallow part with Cyborg.
Right.
He is a character who has to hack into the mainframe. That's his thing. And we have yet to get a good depiction of that on screen, because this with the piles of cash moving about and like it's just
silly.
I gotta slice the net. It's never gonna work. It's never gonna work.
I thought it was silly too, but my headcanon is he was taking that directly from Bruce Wayne and giving it to people. That's what I hope is happening.
Sure, that makes sense.
See, I didn't give a shit about him in the Whedon cut.
Yeah, because he doesn't do anything.
Right. In this one, I was like, okay, I'm down. Like, I see what you're doing, and I'm here for it. I would like to see more of him. And like, it was cool that he was powerful, and I actually cared about him, which was nice. But
Is this the point where we reveal the ship we developed over the course of watching this movie, TJ?
Please do.
So again, we don't know how old Cyborg is supposed to be at this point. We're assuming he's 18. It's important for the rest of my sentence.
Or 25.
Or he looks 25, but he was just in high school. So we're going to say 18. Legal. Anyway, we absolutely started shipping him and Flash a few scenes in. And then the scene where they're digging up the grave and Cyborg's a little bit jealous-y when Flash is talking about how pretty Wonder Woman is. I'm like, I see.
Everybody's a younger guy.
Everybody's a younger man. She's 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have loved to get his origin story without slow-mo football, because I grew up a lot of slow-mo football. I don't need to see slow-mo football ever fucking again.
Oh gosh, the worst being the slow-mo football street game as he looks out the window. Why slow-mo? Why?
Yep. And he blames his father for his mother getting an accident. If you had come to the game, this wouldn't have happened. That's citation needed there, because I don't see how that's a thing.
Show your work.
Show your work. And also, if your wife dies, your son is in a horrible accident, so you're going to make him able to launch nuclear missiles. That's your reaction.
Well, I mean, but it is as ludicrous as Silas saying the only way that I can superheat the mother box is to be inside. And
wait, why? Why? It was on a remote.
I mean, there were options.
No,
and if I'm being cynical, right? If I'm not being generous to the film, right? Mm-hmm. What it says to me is you just really needed this black man to die.
Yeah.
And how does that feel? How does that feel to all your black viewers who already might be intuiting a kind of metaphoric trauma, right? How we have been made automatons, right? Like it's built into cyborgs. The objectification of black men is built into Cyborg's character, you know, but that could work for you in such a generous way if you weren't so invested in Black Death that the black woman who gets the most to say murked, the black man who gets most to say murked, it's just so no, I don't think that I'm not laying that at Snyder's feet as something intentional. It's rather just being obtuse to the visual. If you're a storyboarder, how are you missing this? You know?
And this is even what you haven't seen the Joss Whedon cut, but basically most people of color are not in the Joss Whedon cut. Like they took Iris West out of it. We get way less Cyborg. There is no Ryan Chow. There are so many. When we watched this, we were like, oh hey, there are people of color in this movie.
The Ryan Choi thing really did delight me. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome.
Ryan Choi, we love him.
And Martian Manhunter.
Somebody who's not humorless. Somebody in the film that's not humorless. Ryan Choi.
Best line in the movie is when he says, "It's the hottest thing in the room," which is what I said to my prom date before she dumped me.
So Superman and Batman can bond over the fact that their mother's name is Martha, and Cyborg and Superman can bond over the fact that their dad died a chump's death. Dad killed himself basically.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Oof. There's a scene of Cyborg at the grave, and we just see the grave for a second, and I'm like, oh, is Bruce back? Oh, Cyborg's at the grave. Oh, I guess they can bond over that too.
TJ, why was Cyborg and Flash your favorite ship other than Flash and Aquaman?
Ooh. Well, they don't talk to each other.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't really do much. I don't know. I'm also not, just personally, I'm not into that archetype of ship, I guess, because me and Chris were, completely random, and I'm cutting this, but we were just talking about Teen Wolf.
Don't cut the Teen Wolf talk.
There's a big ship in Teen Wolf that was huge.
My favorite ship.
Kind of has the same vibe, I think, that Flash and Aquaman.
TJ, it's the exact same vibe. You're not wrong. I didn't realize
I just
it.
never saw it. I never connected with it. So honestly, Steven, I never even thought about shipping Aquaman.
I'm not going to let you cut this because I now have to make a point about it. Because you're right. It's a very specific type of ship where it's like Flash is sort of neurodivergent in some way. They're not really saying it. Maybe ADHD. honestly kind of seems a little bit like he's on the autism spectrum. In Teen Wolf, the character that we're talking about, Styles, has ADHD, is, you know, canonically, and then it is Big Himbo Guy. That's the ship, like tiny nerdy ADHD kid and Big Himbo Guy, and I love it. You know what? I'm on board, Steven.
Yeah, I mean, some of it too. I think about. I like sometimes the pairings, whether they're ships or not, but I like the pairings in which people aren't bonding over their shared brilliance. Like,
yes,
because you know, Barry Allen is kind of canonically like pretty deductive. He works as a crime, you know, in the crime lab. You know, him and Cyborg might, you know, bond over their shared like deductions, right? Their shared like intelligence, right? Same with Batman and any other scientist, you know, like or like that. But Aquaman is like the one among them who is distinctly not a brain, you know, like, like you know, like
Aqua Himbo, yes,
yeah, right, exactly. And I enjoy that dynamic because it could slide between buddy cop sort of stuff, you know, like the heavy and the someone who's more jocular, and it can be, you know, interesting on the other end, and that you get a kind of Legolas Gimli sort of vibe, right?
TJ, how mad are you that I've made us talk about Lord of the Rings and Teen Wolf in one podcast?
No, I love both of those things. And I've made you talk about Buffy
so many times.
I looked forward to the scenes between Wonder Woman and Aquaman because they're both removed, right? They both kind of have a haughty off with each other and kind of become more they're of a time, at least their civilizations were removed from that. So that's an interesting angle on this universe that we just haven't gotten before. We spent time with the Amazons, we spent time with the Atlanteans, but to have them both representatives of their people who are not of their people is interesting.
I feel like both cuts of the movie had this Wonder Woman Batman shipping agenda. This one less so, but how did that play for you guys?
For me, it was just like, this is not what this is about, right? This is you're trying to introduce character stuff by having characters attracted to each other, which is not personality.
Right.
That's just biology. So let's move it along. That was my take.
Yeah, I'm never here for that ship ever. No thanks.
I mean, look, until you can outdo the way they handle it in Justice League Unlimited, don't even try.
Yes.
like
look.
and they handle that by turning, you know, Wonder Woman gets transformed into a pig, you know, Batman sings a bluesy, "Am I blue?
Yes.
Aren't these tears in my eyes tell?" I mean, unless you're willing to do that, then you know, then
you don't want it.
No, get back to the MacGuffins.
Look,
like
it doesn't seem like it's in Snyder's Rolodex. It's not his.
A movie in which Batman's main motivation is to bring back the man he's obsessed with, it's hard for me to see him liking a woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's and Chris, you know, it's something that your podcast has made me think about deeply, right? Is because
super bats, because
no, I was going to more say so whether or not I have always read Batman as asexual.
Yes.
I never thought about it. Like I never considered that. Well, when I was younger, that wasn't in my things to even say in terms of my
me either. So imagine how confused I was.
but I really do think that it's different than a version of he's married to his work.
Yes.
You know, like I mean there's something about it that I find accounts for a kind of dissonance, even like when what you were saying, Glenn, where those things happen or they seem to suggest at it and you just keep saying this is not what this is about. Well, doubly so
right.
if we read Batman that way. And so I think it has some legs to it that, you know, if one were to write a sequel to a book, might be included.
Subtle. That was subtle.
Yeah, the toughest part of the book to write about was the Wortham stuff, because at the end of the day, dude had a point.
right.
And yes, as Carol Tilley pointed out, like he just kind of really, he had no evidence for it. He had a hypothesis and he tried to make everything fit his hypothesis. But like that was the section of the book where I'm trying to communicate to any putative straight readers that that like what they see every day is representation. And so when you don't see it, you either see yourself as completely invisible, or you don't exist, or increasingly, and especially in a medium like comics, you just create it between the lines, because you need to see yourself reflected. You need to have your existence not just validated, but like acknowledged.
Yeah,
bare minimum level. And so that I was trying to teach queer semiotics in basically in a like two-page section of the book. But like that's a really important aspect of this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Right. And like I personally look for representation everywhere just for fun at this point, basically.
That's the thesis of this podcast.
But I feel like there's this thing where your favorite character, like you want to relate to them so much, and you do, and you read so much into it when you're a queer fan that you're like, oh, my favorite character is Batman. Well, he's like me, like, you know what I mean? And Chris, I think there's evidence to support your claim.
I mean, it's not like I think any writer has ever intended him to be asexual. I just think that you can easily make the case fairly often.
Oh, for sure.
But like, of course, but author's intention doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like that's it's all about perception. It's all
except when it's Glen Weldon that wrote the book, then it matters.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm telling you, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, I have a whole like thing, a different podcast in which we could talk about why I think Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z is black, why I thought Jazz from Transformers is black, why I thought Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is black. Like, I mean, there's a kind of like way in which you're just right on. That in the opposite of in the absence of representation, you both read into and kind of it's a combination of projection and picking up what people are putting down perhaps without meaning to, that which is coded, like when you're used to navigating the world via codes so that you can survive. It's not even like, it's not an aberration then to see and read into these things. It is, part and parcel for how you navigate the world. And I think that's actually a good thing. I've written a little bit about how important this character from DC, right, who I'd love to see in a film, Static, or you may know him as Static Shock, right? How important that was to me, even in the early 90s, in that we had a representation of a black nerd who was not Steve Urkel. Okay, like somebody who was not Steve Urkel. And you might imagine, my name's Steven. I grew up in that time. Look, it was, I wore glasses. Look, it was set up, right? And so that kind of nuance, right, in which queerness is expanded or blackness is expanded, right? That reading into, look, I mean, I love gargoyles, I'm gonna die on the hill that Goliath ain't black. Like, no matter how much they present him when he turns human for a second. Look, Keith David doing that voice, is black. And the same way with Darth Vader, we can go on and on and on with these sorts of characters. But I mean, I Glenn, I was funny. I think there's something you were describing that we're all getting at, that has to do with folks who are intimate outsiders. That, I mean, so Aquaman represents that. He understands their culture, but he's apart from it. Wonder Woman represents that, understands their culture, but is apart from it, right? And that often, is what I think that marginalized communities, that's the position they're in. They're always intimate outsiders.
Gotham Outsiders, if you would.
Yeah, right. Hashtag TM, right?
Batman envy.
And so look at the chance. Look how queer the film could have been if it saw the Justice League as chosen family.
Yes. And why wasn't it? We had 4 hours. There was plenty of time.
Me and Chris are convinced Ezra Miller's Flash is bisexual or pansexual.
Sure.
Yes.
It's just there.
It's canon.
Yes.
It's canon. We won't accept anything else.
But,
release the queer cut.
This is a slight tangent, but I had a big revelation. I finally understood something that I should have understood long before. When I was a teenager, there was a series of comics called Who's Who in the DC universe. They're kind of like the Marvel.
Yeah.
And I remember I got them all. And one day I just started looking for, heroes who had brown eyes like I did. And I would turn the pages and there were zero.
Yeah.
Some yellow eyes, some red eyes, but absolutely zero. And I finally found like Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Airwave. That's it. And I remember having this feeling like, this feeling of joy when I found a brown-eyed superhero. I thought to myself, if I can find that level of joy from something that is in a pervasively white medium, like I'm focusing on that thing, imagine what it's like for people of color. And for a second, for them to actually find a character that resonates with them in a morphogenic way. It's like, I can't describe the feeling of being seen when I realized that Hal Jordan, character I never liked,
thank you,
had brown eyes like I did. It's like
Hal Jordan is the worst Green Lantern. I'm saying it
easily, but like that's it. Like it's people say representation matters. It's necessary. It's vital. It's in the blood.
Can we talk about Steppenwolf for a second?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
I have a very deep love for Fourth World Kirby everything, like Kirby Crackle all day. And I kept coming back to our experience with Steppenwolf as a villain in this film and thinking, look, I know that Justice League is maybe running into the very obvious similarities between Darkseid and Thanos, and like how the whole the mother boxes might as well be the Infinity gems. I say gems because of when I grew up. But I look at Steppenwolf and I said, man, if he had gotten a kind of Mr. Freeze Heart of Ice treatment, it was. I mean, and it's hinted at, right? There's this deep well of, I am devoted because I was forced to be, or I made a choice, right? I made a choice to be this way, and I would rather live with that choice in all its violence than change again. I mean, not to the degree that you need or don't need to feel sympathy for it. It could have made him much more interesting.
Yes.
And then the choice to, the very specific and odd choice to kill him when it's not necessary. They're about to knock him through the boom tube and send him back. There's no need for Wonder Woman to cut off his head.
Right.
Then it becomes, well, the Justice League are the evil ones.
They straight up murdered that man. No reason.
Because even they can't find the humanity, quote unquote, in Steppenwolf. Right. And I mean, gosh almighty, I wish somebody would take another swipe at it, because there is something so fascinating about New Genesis and Apocalypse.
Yes.
And the way it really how both utopia and dystopia warp people.
Yes.
And there was a chance to talk about that was just whiffed.
Can we talk about the fact that Batman has to get knocked off a ledge and is hanging there so that he's not part of the murder? Because I cracked up. I was like, because he can't kill anybody. I don't know why no one else can't kill anybody, but they're like, he's just gonna hang off the cliff while we murk this guy, so then he's not implicated.
How many people has he run over in the Snyderverse?
Irrelevant.
And the Batmobile has guns and the Nightcrawler has guns.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't count if it's if your car does it.
Right, he's pressing a button. He's not pulling a trigger. That's a big difference.
It's so funny.
Steven, I got some news for you. Like in the Whedon cut, Steppenwolf doesn't even have that motivation.
No, his motivation is mother. Yep. Mother.
Yep. He's given so much less, and just as this cipher, a pointy-headed cipher. That's all he is. Here, at least, they went out of their way to make him a middle manager who's striving to fill the STP reports and
got to make his budget.
Just got to make his budget and just got to bring everything in on time. Now, yes, they introduce a fourth MacGuffin, the anti-life equation, in the last act of this movie for no reason except to set up another movie, which I don't know if it's coming now. And this thing was successful, so who knows? I can't imagine. But I mean, I'm with you on the Fourth World, Stephen, because like every time there's some iconography, there's a boom tube, there's that outline of Darkseid the first time you see him, and it looks perfect. He looks exactly. when he's on the ground mixing it up, fighting, he doesn't seem like Darkseid to me.
No.
He should be standing, on a pedestal somewhere with his arms. Yeah, exactly. Doing that thing. And he should have his arms behind his back and
yes.
Yeah, he's literally above it all, right? All the time until he has to not this is so on the nose, but he is a god, right?
Yes.
Like he behaves as such. The way that they present him in the Snyder Cut, he's a brute. He's a brute. He's a bruiser. In fact, he mostly grunts. He doesn't even speak for a very long time. And I was like, so basically, like, he acts like the Hulk. Like, that's not Darkseid at all. The thing I like about Darkseid is he knows he could punch it out with you. He could punch it out with Superman and doesn't need to.
Right.
He knows he could Omega beam you, from a distance, and will still let Desaad go in there and do it instead, or somebody else. So he's the Godfather, right? He's a mafia leader in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe we had that many title cards and not one of them said Darkseid is.
I know, right?
I like that Steppenwolf is a simp for Darkseid, and he takes his clothes off every time.
He does. Why?
I know. His eyes get real, like that one emoji.
Yeah.
Puppy dog.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, TJ kept going, why is he puppy dog eyeing every time he shows up? It's true. Also, he looks like he has a tail. I know people have been talking about this on Twitter, but it looks like he has a tail.
Yep.
Yeah, what is that supposed to be? It's like supposed to be a tassel, like
a loincloth situation.
Yeah.
But it's also breathing armor that moves for no reason.
Well,
unclear.
He's not called Steppen Guy, right? He's called Steppen Wolf. He's a wolf.
Right. He is Steppen Furry, is what you're telling me.
Steppen Furry.
There's a moment, and I know I keep coming back to the animated, the Bruce Timm verse, because I just love it so much.
Because it's the best.
Yeah. There's a moment in Superman the Animated Series in which they're fighting Darkseid, and they beat him back. Orion from the New Gods shows up and says, hey, New Genesis is protecting Earth. You got to go, Darkseid. And on the way through a boom tube, Darkseid says, okay, you've beaten me, but it's going to cost you something. And he kills, it's one of the few times in which somebody in the Batman animated series, Superman animated series, it's just killed on camera.
Right.
He Omega beams a kind of cop that was kind of leading the resistance. And I just remember as a kid thinking, what did I just witness? And why did that create such great emotional stakes?
Yes.
For this thing that might seem like it's silly for kids. And I'm like, man, they really get it. They really get it in a way that Snyder just doesn't. It just doesn't get how terrifying, a villain can be if they use a less is more approach. Right. And I don't know. That moment has stayed with me for a very long time as being an effective narrative moment.
Right.
And as Chris, you mentioned, there's ample time to set that up, to set those stakes. Ample time. And instead we are, again, as somebody on the show said, if you take out the slow-mo, this movie's an hour shorter. And I like that we're getting more character arcs. That makes sense. Because you are effectively launching, 3 franchises? The Flash franchise, the Aquaman franchise, theoretically, and the Cyborg franchise. And also randomly the Martian Manhunter franchise, apparently, because that happens.
Oh yes, we must talk about that at some point.
But yeah, it's the stakes. He is not a less is more guy. He is more is more, and that's why this thing feels as ponderous and bloated as it does.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Martian Manhunter for a second.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter.
Oh dear. I want to know, the scene I wish we'd had, again, in the 4 hours that we had, was just one moment where Lois turns to Martha and is like, I had a really good conversation with you the other day. And she just goes, what?
Burr?
I haven't seen you in months. What are you talking about?
So that scene, Martian Manhunter has to know so much about both Martha and Lois, which he obviously only knows because he's been reading some minds.
Right.
So that's and yet he was concerned that Lois get back out into the workforce.
But why? We all want that for her, but why?
We do. That is not a very, moping around the house is just not a Lois Lane.
Was he a subscriber? He was like, hey, I missed your articles. They were really good.
Yeah. Well, and it's a strange, the only way that I can account for it is that it's a leftover thing about what Snyder was imagining about Lois being in this kind of multiverse timeline that we get at the end too. That he, like, in other words, Martian Manhunter needs Lois to get back out into the workforce so that she is there when Superman wakes up in order for him to go back. And I mean, all again and again and again. So it feels very much like plot devicey sort of like business, but then doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know, in the
it would make sense if it would make sense if Martian Manhunter was Doctor Strange and was like, I saw this and you have to be here. He's not, though.
well, but it also could make, I mean, this is a real stretch, right? It could make sense if he has read Bruce's mind and has been seeing these dreams that Bruce thinks is dreams, but he recognizes them to be something else. So he's sort of like what normally the Flash would be, you know, in that he is a kind of stand-in for operating the multiverse via psychic stuff. But look, I'm giving that too much
That's so much credit. That's a lot of credit.
It's a lot of fan
work. So again, Batman's power is that he is fabulously wealthy. So how much wealth do you have to have before you start becoming psychic? Because
I resent that joke, that framing so much, you know, because
really?
it is, but well, not what you just said. I think that's very funny.
Oh, no. I didn't think you meant me, but you mean when he says his superpower is money?
Yeah, is that I'm rich? Because it's low-hanging fruit, right? And both people, it's like the joke that no one knows about Batman, that's the joke they tell, you know? Right. And it's also the joke that people who know everything about Batman that they tell but don't believe, you know? So like nobody actually thinks that that's true, right? Because it sets up a situation in which you start to say, and Glenn, I think you address this really well in the Caped Crusade, right?
Yeah.
It's a part of the framework that is anybody could be Batman if they were rich. And you know, you categorically can't, you know, like
it didn't make sense for him to say it. I feel like Aquaman would have made that joke about Batman if he had his personality. To be clear, he doesn't have personality in this one, but if he'd had Aquaman movie personality, he could have said something like that. But Batman saying it, Batman doesn't believe that about himself. That's not the Batman we know.
Yeah, he's many things. Self-deprecating doesn't really fit.
Right, self-aware? Nope.
Nope.
No, and then again, it feels like ventriloquism. It feels like this is Snyder in Batman's mouth saying something about Batman, rather than the character of Batman doing really good character work. He could have answered that. He could have answered that by not answering. You know, and turning the music up in the car, and so that we get the idea of he's rich, you know, like rather than him actually saying it. But you know,
or we just go Batman Forever with it, and he goes trauma.
Yeah, right.
No, what would have been hilarious is if he turned up the music and it was "Kiss from a Rose" soundtrack. You know, that would have been perfect.
Yes.
Or the Lego Batman song, you know, the Lego Batman song.
Now I want them to release the Schumacher cut of this movie.
More cod pieces.
More.
The Martian Manhunter stuff, like, I thought it was really cool to see that character, and I love Harry Lennox as an actor, so I was very happy for him, but I thought it just was kind of out of place, and you could just tell it was last second, and it didn't add anything.
I increasingly think that Martian Manhunter is a character that really only looks good on the page, because on the Supergirl show, it just looks a bit goofy, and here he looked a bit goofy, and I just live for that moment because, like, I just heard millions of heads turning to the person on the couch going, who's that? What was that? The hell was that?
Yeah. Can we talk about one of the million endings where he talks to Batman, which is simultaneously one of the stupidest scenes and one of my favorites at the same time. My favorite because I love Batman having just survived all this and being so over it. He's like, sure, why not? Alien? Okay, fine. Let's have this conversation, which I very on character. But Martian Manhunter is like, I have decided I finally care. And, but why?
I tell you, like there's a weird personal responsibility thing happening there, and when he often is transforming into again a black person, there's a strange triangulation, you know, there that.
what I want deeply is for his backstory to have been that he's been doing the Martha Lois thing to just people all over the place. Like he's just touched by an angel people's lives.
Also, like, why are the two black superheroes like almost not even black? Because Martian Manhunter is green and then Cyborg is mostly Cyborg.
Yeah, it's a little telling, huh?
Well, this is an issue with DC.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so who do you have? From whom could you choose? Like Black Lightning is going to be the person who, that's most, the most prominent that you can choose from, or maybe Vixen, right? But I suspect DC does not want a film in which a Black woman is called Vixen, like repeatedly. Like, I mean, it's I guess Bumblebee too, from like Teen Titans, but you're just hitting into that systemic problem, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the powers that be said, we got Cyborg, we're good. I think that's kind of the thinking there.
Yeah.
Supposedly that Martian Manhunter coming down scene was filmed when they originally shot the movie, and it was supposed to be Green Lantern. Yeah, the one from the animated show. What's his name?
John Stewart. Yeah,
John Stewart.
Supposed to be him, but DC said absolutely not. You cannot use that character in this extra long cut. Use something else. So that's how we got Martian Manhunter.
That's so weird. Well, then presumably Green Lantern wasn't Martha, though, right? I'm so confused.
That'd be great.
TJ had to do a lot of telling me what Snyder said in interviews to explain multiple scenes of this movie.
Yeah, I don't know why I've read so many interviews.
I appreciated it because I kept going, wait, what are they implying here? Because like the fact that Lois Lane is pregnant, we were supposed to catch that.
Right.
Yeah, from the pregnancy test. Right.
That's hidden in a drawer.
but that shot is super long. Right. There's a reason, like the shot of the open drawer is just so obvious. Yes. It's like, why are we lingering? Oh, okay. There
it is a 4-hour movie. I wasn't paying that much attention by that point.
Well, my favorite moment comes earlier. It's that long discussion that Diana has with Bruce, where she's telling him the whole backstory about the Amazonians and the ancient gods and legends, and the mother box, and he stops her and he goes, "Mother box," and I'm like, that's what you focus on. That's what bumps you out of this story is mother box. Because don't worry, you're going to hear it again and again and again several times.
You're that's the scene, of course, where they're like, and one went to the elves and one went to the. Oh no, sorry, that's a different movie.
Yeah, there's something to something I've always liked about if the whole fourth world, all the apocalypse and New Genesis stuff wasn't treated as just like a means to an end.
Yeah.
Right. Like they just completely skip over that the mother boxes are supposed to be living technology, and that there should be a quandary about like we're destroying, we're separating, we're doing this stuff to essentially an AI that's like different than AI. Like they explicitly say they're alive, right? And so therefore they might have agency. They might. I mean, all of that stuff is like they don't know what to do with that stuff, because granted it's a little wonky. Like it gets wonky really fast, but you've got this very strange and gendered name, right?
Yes.
Box, right. And then are explicitly talking about it as being alive, and then treated as
an object.
Yeah, and just a problem, essentially,
There's some definitely great Star Trek-esque stories they could tell with this. This is a living being, right? Like it could have been done. Maybe this is deeply unfair to Zack Snyder, and I apologize, Zack Snyder, if it is. You're never going to hear this, so it's fine. I think he doesn't know this stuff, just based on, well, we'll get to the many endings and the fact that the dead Robin is not Jason Todd, but I just don't think he knows this stuff.
Yeah, man, as soon as the Joker showed up, I was like, bored.
Yes. Okay.
Like Sherlock level, TV show, bored.
Let's hit those endings now, because
the nightmare
good
scene.
Lord.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's talk about the Mad Max future. What a weird what? That's all I have for the moment.
I like the outfit. I like the goggles. I like the jacket.
absolutely wearing the Damian Wayne outfit, but sure.
I got that reference.
Yay, TJ got that reference because it was from Morrison. Anyway. But okay, so they have decided that the people who are left alive are Mira, Slade, Batman, Flash, and Joker, right? Am I forgetting somebody? No, that's it, right?
Cyborg? Did you say Cyborg?
Cyborg.
Oh, Cyborg is there too, yes. What a weird combination of people to decide are still alive.
Like, I'm into the, like, I love a good dystopian. I love a ragtag team of people who are like enemies working together. I'm here for that. This whole scene was not necessary though. No. Like, if I guess the sequel was supposed to be more heavily this, and like, okay, but it wasn't needed. And the Joker was the main thing here, and it didn't work for me.
So obviously from all the interviews and the really creepy cult-like photo shoots, we knew that Jared Leto was going to show up in this movie. My thoughts about the Joker are well established on this show. So TJ can attest that for the last hour, I was like, when's he going to show up? Like, I was in dread. And then there's like 10 minutes left of the movie, and I'm like, is he not really in it? Did I luck out? Is he not in it?
Having it be the last scene was weird.
We have a scene in Arkham where we see Lex that I was like, okay, here's the Joker. Surely. No. Instead, we get this scene where he offers Batman a reach around.
I mean, it just feels, all respect to Jared Leto, but it just feels like somebody phoning it in. Like, absolutely just phoning it in. It just, or like you're dealing with people who really like Injustice, the video game.
That's
Injustice
it.
1 and 2.
That's it.
I'm just like, look, you know, I try to give a lot of people a lot of grace within these films, right? Sometimes it's like you're saying Ben Affleck's doing what he can with what he's been given. But I mean, I just largely was like, I do not care. I do not care whether or not you're going to kill the Joker. Like, that question itself is boring to me. Like, you know, the performance of the Joker with his laugh, not laugh, you know, huffing, you know, like, what is that? I'm like,
it's the worst.
I tell my students, my poetry students, this all the time. Your number one job as an artist is to not be boring.
Yes.
Don't be boring. You know, like, you know, that's if you can't clear that hurdle, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So there's three things that happen with the Joker that scene, laugh notwithstanding, that will haunt my dreams, and not in like a good way, like he's a good villain, like in an annoying way. But the other thing is that we established that there's a dead Robin, which, first of all, Snyder, rude. We never got to see the live Robin. And it's supposed to be Dick Grayson, and I will be mad about that forever. And the time when somebody asked him, don't you mean it's Jason Todd? And he went, what? Anyway.
Those of you, there's a podcast, so y'all can't see me covering my face, you know, face plant,
right?
Palm to face.
As he frantically Googles who Jason Todd is. The other thing we get, the best moment of this, the only good moment of this scene, is Batman going, Harley Quinn died in my arms, and the last thing she said was kill Joker for me, which, high key, love it. And because this was an alternate reality that presumably was never going to happen, I genuinely thought he was going to kill him in this scene. I was like, because it's not going to happen. And also it's Snyder, so it could happen in this scene. I was waiting for him to straight up kill him, and instead he's like, no. Well, okay, so why did that scene happen?
and also, what is up with Deathstroke's hair?
What is going on?
Hair, like I mean, I have never seen a pompadour gone so wrong. You know?
Oh, Slade, who we at that point have seen for 5 seconds in an after credit scene.
And he had the mask on, right? Did we?
Yeah. No, he takes it off, I think.
Okay, all right. That was so late in the movie, and I had so much wine just to get through it. So I wasn't really paying that much attention. And I was also really distracted by the presence of Mira in an arid wasteland. What is she gonna do?
Is she okay? Do we even know she can survive?
Right.
She's also so controversial right now that I was kind of like, why did you pick her?
Yeah. it was a choice. Choices were made. Well, between her and Jared Leto being in that scene, they have a lot of controversial humans in one. Anyway.
And look, I'm a big Teen Titans fan, so like I was excited to see Deathstroke because I like him, and this is in Morrison's JLA run, in which there are times when he, in a very Batman-esque way, has had to take down the whole Justice League. And so he's like, I've planned for you, Flash, you're taken out first. I've planned for, you Green Lantern. Like I've played, all of those sorts of things. And I think, if we get a mix of, in a very Avengers-like way, right? A mix of seeing the heroes win and then seeing the heroes taken down closer to Earth, right? We get to experience them in different ways that feel enjoyable. And who doesn't want who doesn't want what fan doesn't want to see the person who thinks they are untouchable brought low a little bit.
I like it. Yeah.
So. Now, TJ, you've in all these interviews you've read, the Flashpoint movie is still happening, right? So this could tie into that whole bullshit future thing could tie into that somehow, right?
I guess it could. That movie does appear to be happening.
That's where we are, right? It does appear to be happening, but it's gone backward and forward on whether it's even going to be Flashpoint at this point.
Right now it's less Flashpoint and more different, like multiverse.
Right.
So like Michael Keaton, of course, and there's a new Supergirl who is Latina, and we're not sure if she's going to be from this Earth or another Earth.
Iris West might get a line.
Like Flash could run through this little reality, this dystopian, and be like, "Oh hey," and peace out. Who knows? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Such a mess.
Well, if anything, if the Mandalorian has taught us anything, that maybe these should have just been television shows.
It should have been
done really well by people who were true fans. I mean, I hate to use that word. But who grew up to be creators. Like I'm very like kind of almost like flabbergasted how well Dave Filoni sort of gets Star Wars.
Yes.
And I just wish that for someone who got DC that same way,
My totally crack it would never happen idea is that we just keep remaking Justice League with different directors. I think it would be hilarious.
A different cut every year.
Every year we get a different cut of Justice League.
And
because effectively this was a Justice League television show, right?
It was.
You had to get up every half an hour to pee and to get a snack and
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So my question then is, obviously that we hated a lot about this movie. Is there anything you all liked? Like, do you have a favorite scene that you actually enjoyed?
I liked how it looked. I mean, sometimes in moments when we see Assad, when we see Darkseid, and he's brooding and he's not, mixing it up. I like the iconography. As people have mentioned, the Mother Box story doesn't make sense because if he left the Mother Boxes on Earth, that means he can't conquer any other planets. So he's been spending the years since then not conquering planets, or does every planet have their own Mother Boxes? And how did he forget that that's where the anti-life equation? I mean, it's all this. They don't seem to have a good. They don't have a good Outlook calendar. It seems like if they can just forget that Mother Boxes are on Earth.
Oh, look, I misplace my keys all the time. I can't judge him that hard.
I really liked the scene with Flash going back in time. It may be a little basic to pick because everyone seems to really like that, but I just was really invested in that scene when it was happening. I thought it looked cool. It showed how powerful he was. And then, of course, the Wonder Woman with the little girl. Again, another basic pick, but those were the two things that stand out to me.
I think this is my bold claim. I hated this movie. I really did. But I think the Speed Force scene is one of the best comic book movie scenes I've ever seen in a movie that sucks. But it was great. I love it. I love the dynamic of him, failing because he got hurt and he has to go back in time and fix it. I liked his whole movie that he had by himself on his own over there. I thought that part was good. I also really like the part where Alfred is serving tea to everybody and everybody greets him and thinks he's the best because everyone should, and that is always how it should be.
Gay Uncle Alfred.
Gay Uncle Alfred.
Did you like him mansplaining tea to Diana though? That was a little.
No, that was not cool. Though I mean, he does kind of correct everyone all the time, so it isn't out of character.
Right. I didn't read it as mansplaining, but I see why you did.
I thought it was British splaining. Oh no, we lost Steven. What happened? Can you hear us?
Yep, I'm just coming in now. This was very Flashpoint.
Are you Steven from the future?
You'll never know, right?
Lois is the key.
Lois is the key.
So, Steven, what is your favorite part of this horrible movie that we made you watch?
Oh my gosh, I wasn't cursing your names.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'll say it this way. I thought what my favorite parts were going to be were all the Cyborg parts because I'm a sucker for a dad story, just an absolute sucker, right? And I loved Silas's performance, if I had to pick one standout performance, just acting wise, it's right there,
Oh yeah.
But I didn't enjoy that like I thought I would. What I actually enjoyed, is I think just like literally Batman fighting parademons.
Yes, it was fun.
I thought it was just so much fun. I liked him on the like Gatling gun, alien Gatling gun, like, doing what he's. And so it's like I don't even have a problem with him using guns in that instance because he's not so OP, right? I just kept coming back to that. I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about it in terms of Glenn's book about the idea of self-rescue, right?
Yes.
And I think Batman in those moments, and they're just action moments, they're not like really even character moments. I see a kind of ethics, right? Of doing, it's just what you were saying. He says to Flash, like, I can't do it all.
Yeah.
Right? And this is often how I feel, even the pandemic, right? I can't do it all. I can't save anybody, but I can bring food to my neighbor. I can do this one thing. And I think, there's a bit of a metaphor, which sounds so strange because he's like shooting people, but there's a part that I enjoy in that he lives within his means. He does what he can. And that I think is heroic, that's a thing that, in some ways, he does have a deep faith in the power of a small act.
Yes.
And so like that feels very Batman to me. Like,
yes.
Ask yourself, like, why does he, once he joins the Justice League, sort of in the world of DC, why does he still keep going back to Gotham? Why does he spend time with the street level criminals? Well, one way to account for that is he believes, right? He believes in that oath. He believes in even beyond kind of obsession, because I don't think you have to pathologize it. It can just simply be, I have a faith in, rescuing one person is me rescuing myself. Is me rescuing the child that wasn't rescued, that could have been. So I think, whether it's him, doing that for other Justice Leaguers or just doing his part, him fighting the good fight is the smallest amount of altruism that we get in the film. And I really adore that.
Yeah, you remind me too that one thing I really like, and you kind of have to squint to read this into it, but there's a moment where he's like in that fight where he's gonna just go sacrifice himself because he knows he doesn't have as much chance to make it out as everyone else does, and everyone together saves him a little bit. Like Wonder Woman like Aquaman's on his Nightcrawler thingamajig, there's all these moments. I think there's something kind of sweet there because this Batman has been a loner at least for a while, and he is willing to, because he believes in the mission, he's willing to die for it, but he actually has a team backing him up, which would have been so emotionally resonant if they'd ever had a conversation.
Chris, can you imagine if what he said to them is, look, in the scale of things, if this is a prolonged battle, my death means the least. My death. So I'm going to risk it all right now for this one chance.
Yeah.
If that had been the conversation, it's him reckoning with his own mortality, and then them coming to save him. What a, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. We could have had it all.
Like we could have had it all. Rolling in the deep.
We could have, but I am, I'm not an unbiased viewer. Batman is my favorite character.
Yeah.
He will forever be, And so I really enjoyed those moments and what they brought me. And this is part of the reason why I didn't just quit on the film, at 4 hours, is
the other part was the peer pressure that we were applying.
Professional peer pressure. I just thought, Batman is interesting to me fundamentally. And so he will always be kind of the part that I gravitate to. And I thought he legitimately was, that in this film as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's a pretty good transition then into how would we make this a better cut? What is the Steven, Glenn, Chris, and TJ cuts of this movie?
What I'm gonna say is more Batman. I need more Batman. More Batman.
And I just say more Ezra Miller.
Yes.
Less speed fondling, but everything else good. Everything else fantastic. Exactly. A much needed tone, a much needed lightness in a very dark, ponderous film.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I would cut all the fight scenes by 70%.
I feel like we're all on the same page. Less slow-mo, more character moments. Take those couple good Whedon moments if we wanted to take the best of both and combine them, or just create new ones that are just as good. And then I think we would end up with a 2.5-hour film that isn't that bad.
I would definitely not take an hour and a half before half of the members of the team enter the movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, just a slight amendment to that. I do think that the film would have benefited so much if it had just decided to be a Superman film or decided to be a Batman film, in the way that, as much as I think, we want to give shade to, Whedon, Avengers gets it right because it thinks of itself as an Iron Man film.
Yeah.
In which these other, it doesn't think, well, we got to spend 10 minutes and for 10 minutes, we're going to be a Black Widow film, although that would have been great, or, for 10 minutes, we're going to be a Hulk film, not all these shifts. It's an Iron Man film in which they are participating in his vision.
Yes.
Like if we had gotten that even through Superman, I would have much more enjoyed that rather than the sort of collage, that we end up with.
And I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it overall, but there's a lot that I have problems with.
You have the most positive opinion.
I know. That's what I wanted to say it, because I know we'll have listeners that are like, well, I liked it.
Yeah. And okay. Would any of you watch it again? That's the real question.
I don't remember much of the end of it. So you guys are talking about the Speed Force thing. And I don't think I remember it that well. So I think I will eventually go back, but I'm going to combat the slow-mo with the fast forward button.
Yes.
And zip through so they will all run at normal speed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suspect I'm going to have to for this Batman class I'm teaching. But on my own, unprompted, I would rather watch another episode of Batman the Animated Series. Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, as much problems as I had with the Whedon version, I have watched it more than once. So probably I will watch this again. I'm going to skip many fight scenes, I think. And it's not even, I don't even hate fight scenes. Again, I love Lord of the Rings. I just think most of these are very boring.
Yeah. This is the part where I do a plot twist for Chris.
Okay.
I've seen this movie twice.
When did you watch it again? You just watched it with me.
I was a bad friend and watched it before I watched it with you.
Oh no.
The reveal.
Oh no.
Darkseid
is.
I had no self-control.
You faked it so well. You could have never have told me that, and I would never have known.
TJ, you are the Desaad of this.
I wanted to tell you so bad, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till we're like recording and do it live.
Yep.
You just wanted to get the shocked voice on camera.
Exactly.
That's wild. You
Scandalo.
I got ya.
The amount of times you were like, wow, I wonder what's about to happen.
I wanted to give you the experience of watching it with me for the first time, even though I was a bad friend.
Liar.
A thin tissue of lies.
All right. Well, Glenn and Steven, since we have forgotten to ask you this question twice, if you were able to tell a Batman or Bat family story to your liking, you had no limitations.
Right. We have tied up DC editorial. They're in a closet and they can't stop you.
What story would you want to tell or see done?
I think I would try to do one of those completely wordless, captionless comic book stories, because that is the biggest challenge. Anytime a writer, even a good prose writer, starts to write comics, it's like they think of comics, it's like they've forgotten that they grew up on the medium, and they think of it as like illustrating their text. And it's just blocks and blocks of text, way too many captions, and they don't trust the medium to tell the story. So I would challenge myself to do one that's completely wordless. It would probably just be, it'd be basic. It'd be, a night on patrol, and I would try to have some emotional kicker there at the end. But I don't necessarily want to kind of retcon anything. Everything you thought you knew was wrong. That's not my vibe. Yeah, I think I'd just do a day in the life or a night in the life.
Love it.
Yeah. There's there's so many good examples. I mean, Glenn, when you're saying that, it makes me think of that famous Larry Hama G.I. Joe, the silent issue, and there's tons of examples of that, of wordless storytelling in comics that just are so beautiful.
Yeah, the one when after Damian died, there's one issue of, maybe it's Detective, where it's just him on a night, and he just keeps seeing these echoes of things that remind him, completely wordless. Awesome.
Oof, I love that.
Yeah, there's a really great, it's way too expensive and it's not collected enough, but there's a really great Batman story by Darwin Cook called Batman Ego. And I return to that and think about that a lot when I think about what kinds of stories I would want to write. And ultimately, I think kind of in that vein, right? I think it would be interesting to tell a story that's just focused on the relationship between Alfred and Bruce Wayne, and the conversations they have as surrogate father and son, as he's sewing up Bruce, as he's sometimes pleading with Bruce not to go back out again, or giving him permission to do, or all those that relationship I find pretty, and spoilers, they kill him, Tom King, yep. I'm frustrated. So I think, a kind of for lack of a better word, a kind of just a family story.
Yeah.
That's kind of focused on Alfred and Bruce, and not that as peppering for a larger story or a mystery, but as a kind of a one shot, and even, I would love for a moment where Bruce said, "You're my dad, right?" And Alfred having to answer that question in character, either to say, "No, I'm not. I could never be," or whatever. But that, I all the feels,
you just gave me the feels just now.
Even I'm imagining a book of poems, just Bruce writing to Alfred.
I mean, DC would never give me the rights.
We'll petition it.
Well, Steven and Glenn, where can our listeners find you, and what upcoming projects do you have?
You can find me at SD Leyva on Twitter, where you'll find me talking often about how poets and fiction writers can learn a lot by watching anime and reading comics. I have a column at the Washington Independent Review of Books called Nerd Volta, in which we just describe and talk about that explicitly. And upcoming projects, I have a book of poems that came out in October called The Understudy's Handbook. So if you're into poems and enjoy that kind of thing, please check it out.
It is brilliant.
Thank you, Chris. And much love to anybody who is publishing in the era of COVID, in which we can't have in-person events, and how much that means to authors, to those personal connections. So, when this veil of tears is over, we will be together once again, and maybe we can get together over some poems.
And I can be found at Twitter at GH Weldon, also Instagram. I'm a co-host of Pop Culture Happy Hour on NPR. I've got a book, Superman, the Unauthorized Biography, which just got an audiobook that I didn't know about. The cool thing about that is that it's voiced by George Newbern, who was the voice of Superman in
Yes.
League. The second book, Batman, the Caped Crusade, Batman and the Rise of Nerd Culture. Heard of it? The audiobook is done by me, and I've got a new book coming up in the end of July that I'm doing on behalf of NPR. It's called NPR's Podcasting Startup Guide, and it's basically advice about doing what you guys are doing so well, is creating a podcast and launching it out into the world. So it was basically me interviewing a hell of a lot of NPR podcasters, not just podcasters, but like engineers and editors and producers, everybody kind of behind the scenes as well, to talk about how you launch it. And I'm recording the audiobook for that in a couple days.
So exciting.
I loved your audiobook for Caped Crusade. So.
Oh, thanks. Yes. That was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
Restore the Snyderverse.